Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at a watch that had a pretty successful Kickstarter campaign in 2017 in September of that year, the Karl Leimon Classic Pioneer. Now they had a $30,000 goal and they raised $37,699, so they obviously had a pretty good campaign with it. Start the unboxing process, international warranty card with a little instruction manual, and a little bit of information on this little postcard as well. And then we have the inner box. So if I just get rid of this outer box, and then we can check out the watch in question. So we have Karl Leimon printed on the underside of the top. Nice case, not too large, which is a good thing as well in my eyes. And here we have the watch in question. So it's pretty cool as well. You get a little tiny pusher, and the reason why you get this tiny pusher is because it's a moon phase and a full calendar. You have a little button there to advance the month. So that is the pusher they recommend you use, just to push that little button in to advance the month when you're setting the time. So that's a nice little touch. So let's get that all out of the way then and have a look at the watch in question. So as I mentioned before, it's a watch that the process started in 2017, but recently now they've just started selling them direct on the website. So obviously it's gone through that entire process. Everyone seems relatively happy, can't see many negative press about it, so that's all good news. The price is $290 or around £230. Now, having a look at the Karl Leimon website and also the Kickstarter campaign, the main reason why they created the Classic Pioneer is the fact that they saw a little bit of a gap there in that there wasn't an affordable classic moon phase watch. Now, I sort of agree with that. There are other options available. However, it is still a relatively empty gap in the market, if you will. Not necessarily fully empty, but the options are limited. So it's nice to have another option, especially with the addition of, the extra full calendar sub-dials as well. So I think, that they've got a nice little niche going on. And let's have a look at and talk about the watch in detail then to see if it is worth your time and your money. So if I just pop it on, we'll talk about the specifications first of all. So I have a 7 just slightly over a 7, between a 7 and a 7/4 inch wrist for reference. So size-wise, we've got a 38mm diameter, a height of a mere 10 millimeters, and a lug-to-lug length of 46.5 mil. Now, obviously, it is a classic, smart kind of dress watch, so I think the 38mm diameter works really nicely here. It fits my wrist really well, and it is small enough to be really smart and elegant. But the fully polished case and the stark white dial as well is enough to draw your eye and draw attention to it. So I think the size is really nice. 70 grams is the weight, so it's also pretty lightweight. So it's easy to wear. You can easily wear it all day, which is a good plus. Water resistance is 5 atmospheres or 50 meters. So you do have a relative amount of protection there. However, definitely don't go swimming with it, but you do have a little bit of protection there if you do have any sort of accidents. You get a 2-year warranty with the watch, which is good. And one slightly annoying thing is the lug width. It's a rather unusual 21mm wide, just there at the lug. So yes, straps do exist in 21mm lug width, but they are slightly more difficult to find. To be honest, the quality of the strap, we'll talk about it later, but you shouldn't need to replace it immediately. You can if you want to, but it is suitable for the watch. So, at least that's got it going for it. And then finally, the movement selected is the Miyota 6P00, which is primarily used mainly because obviously it has the full calendar 3 dials and also the moon phase section as well. So that will give you a 3-year battery life. And Miyota quartz movements are pretty good, pretty hardy, so you shouldn't get any issues with that. Okay, so let's have a look at it in closer detail then, and we can start by looking at the dial. So, relatively straightforward kind of design. I do really like the addition of the moonphase, and obviously that's their key selling point here. They've done it in a really nice, subtle way as well, with the Karl Leimon logo sort of embedded within that circle, if you will. I like the inclusion of the rest of that circle as well because it balances well with the other subdials. If we have a look at it in closer detail, these other subdials are at an ever so slightly lower level, and they also have a very gentle concentric circular pattern to them as well, just these two eyes at 3 and 9. So that provides a very minuscule but nice subtle amount of texture and depth to the dial. Print works all nice and fine, relatively straightforward really, no obvious signs of dirty work or anything like that, so that's all nice. We'll have a look at it in closer detail with a macro lens later on. And finally, the applied hour markers, again, we'll look at it in closer detail, but they're really nice, and I don't know if I can get a decent focus right now, but they almost are leaning inwards. You see the end here has a slight in-cut from the bottom, which looks really, really nice. You don't notice it, but when you look at it in closer detail, it's a nice little touch there. So I really do like the hour markers. They're all pitched as well. So they provide a nice array of reflections, as you can see. And then the hands, pretty standard leaf hands, classy, elegant, straightforward and simple. And, it means legibility is pretty decent as well. So in terms of design, I think it's nice and legible. It's got a relative amount of complexity to it with the subdials. However, they've kept it designed in a way that it's still easy to read, easy to use as well, but also interesting enough that your eye is drawn to it. So, whilst at a glance you might think, okay, yeah, I see what's going on here is quite simple and straightforward. It does take a relative amount of skill to be able to get to that level of design, because there is a lot going on, but it's still simple and it's still attractive as well. Moving on to the case then, so sitting directly above the dial is a sapphire crystal, flat sapphire crystal, and it has really good anti-reflective coating as well. If I get a reflection on there we go, so you can see there the blue flash, but for the most part, it's very nice, clear, easy to read. I mean, you can see just looking at it straight on, the reflections are kept to absolutely zero. And it's really lovely and crystal clear, which is a good thing. I really like seeing decent anti-reflective coating. So moving on to the case then, if I just give it a quick wipe. So the case is fully polished. Unfortunately, obviously that does mean you will pick up little marks here and there. As you can see, I have picked up a very slight little mark just at the bottom here on the bezel, which is a bit of a shame, but obviously that does happen with fully polished cases. They do pick up scratches very easily. It's just one of those things. The shape of the case, pretty standard barrel, but quite long lugs as well. When you compare the 38mm diameter to the lug-to-lug length of 46.5mm, quite long, outstretched lugs. It does mean that despite it being smaller, it does fit on a regular to a slightly larger wrist quite nice and easily, which is good. Thing in my eyes, and the finishing is all very, very nice, mirror-like finish, no complaints whatsoever in terms of manufacturing. Moving on to the pusher here at 2, so that is, as I mentioned before, to advance the month, so quite neat. And we have the Karl Leimon crown as well. You can see the Karl Leimon KL logo that's engraved on the end there. So the crown is fairly easy to use. It's quartz, so you're unlikely to have to use it very often at all, but it is easy when you do. Moving on to the case back, so we have this, if I just get quite detailed Karl Leimon kind of design. That's actually the same as was on the postcard as well, so that matches up quite well. But as I mentioned before, very detailed and nicely engraved as well. It's not the deepest engraving, however, it's deep enough to to be able to see it and to appreciate it, and then just some fairly straightforward bits of information lightly engraved around the outside as well. So not too exciting apart from that nice bit of artwork in the center. Apart from that, you know, it's flat and polished. Moving on to the strap then. So not quite a patent, it has a slight matte kind of feel to it, which is much better. I prefer a matte strap to a patent strap. A relatively deep crocodile stamp as well, which I think in this instance works reasonably well. You know, personally I can take it or leave it with the crocodile stamp, but you know, in certain places, you know, it works well, and this is one of those places. Quality is reasonable. You know, for a watch costing around £200, you know, you never get amazing straps. Good to see that we have quick release pins as well, as you can see there. And moving on to the butterfly clasp. Now this is probably my main point of concern really. It's most likely just a one-off, so I personally wouldn't say it's something that you know, you should be too worried about, but oh my goodness, I'm having issues getting this on, aren't I? However, if you look at the engraving on the top bar there, you can see it's sort of like half done. I'm pretty certain this is just a manufacturing issue. If I give it a quick wipe, I mean, we'll look at it in closer detail with the macro lens, but you can see it's quite difficult to get it, but you can see it looks sort of like half rubbed off. You can see the two L's are barely there, and half of the logo isn't there either. So it's most likely just a manufacturing fault. You know, it's a shame that I did get one with that fault in. However, you know, I'm pretty certain it will be made to a reasonable standard for anything, for any other watches that they are sent out. So that's my one concern there. So just briefly before we get the macro lens on, let's talk about the movement. So the Miyota 6P00, relatively easy to set. So as I mentioned before, you press that button to advance the month. If you pull it out to the first step, you can go one way to advance the moon phase calendar. So you can see the moon phase is advancing there. And then rotate it the other way to advance the date. So you see the date at 12, that's advancing as I'm rotating that. And then you pull it out to the next step to actually set your time. And you do actually have to advance the time 24 hours to advance the day. So you will have to go around and around again to go to Saturday, for instance. So there's no way around that, unfortunately. However, days don't change. So, you know, you shouldn't have to change that once it's been set. So that's at least a good thing. Okay, let's pop the macro lens on then and have a look at it in closer detail. Starting off with the dial then. So here we have might as well start with these subdials. You can see the concentric circular pattern, very nice and detailed there. And the other one for the month. This dial at the top doesn't have any sort of depth to it, it's just straight up. You can see there's the date. Moving down we have our moon phase indicator and our logo. Again, pretty nice detailing. Nice painted border to that window as well, which frames it well. And despite it only being cut out, you know, it's a nice little frame around it. Having a look at these nice hour markers then, if I can get a sort of angle on it, you can see there what I was referring to earlier. You know, we have a lovely angled tip just there, and you know, they're all just really nicely manufactured, fully polished, nice design, nice bit of thought put behind them as well, despite them being so small. Then of course we have a double at 12, so that's really nice. Nice bit of detail, and you can see also the sort of very gentle texture to the base of the dial as well. A nice whitey champagne kind of colour. Finally, the hands, we have these leaf-shaped hands, fully polished as well, which are, you know, long, outstretching and very elegant. So nice job on that. So moving over to the case, I just give it a quick wipe down on this one side. We can see the bezel, you can see my little mark there, unfortunately, and here we have one of the lugs. Nice rounded edges, you know, no sharp corners or anything, very comfortable to handle. Flipping it over, here we have the crown with the KL logo nice and deeply engraved on it, and the grip on it as well. And moving over, we have our little pusher for our month's advancement as well. And finally, if we have a look at the case back, here we have some of the details, that really detailed kind of design on the back, nice and deeply engraved, and all the other bits are, you know, they're engraved, relatively lightly engraved, but they're engraved nonetheless, which is better than just laser etching. So nice amount of work that's gone into the case back there. And then moving on to the strap. So we have our matte crocodile stamp on top and our black stitching as well. And if we flip it over, we will see we have Karl Leimon stamped on the back. Oh, if I can just get it closer. There we go. And of course we have one of our quick release pins, which is great to see pretty much on every single strap nowadays, which is good. And then finally, my main down point of the watch is this. Obviously, I don't know what's happened here, but it's an obvious issue that hopefully will not be on any other watches and just mine alone. So there's the top bar of the butterfly clasp with the logo very lightly half engraved on it. Butterfly clasp is pretty straightforward. Butterfly clasp, you know, nothing too exciting to mention. Same as you know, every other butterfly clasp going, really fairly comfortable to use, nice and easy with these two pushers. Okay, so you know, I'm happy to agree with what they've done. You know, they filled a gap of a affordable classic moonphase, but on top of that, you know, they've provided us with the extra option of being able to have a watch with a full-on calendar as well. So in terms of design, you know, it's simple, it's classic, but I think it looks really good as well. I love the size of the watch, you know, 38mm in diameter, it works so well. It looks great on when you're wearing a suit as well. So in that instance, you know, they've done a really lovely job on the design. For some people, it may be a little bit too simple, but obviously it is down to a matter of taste. But in terms of construction, you know, I can't really fault it apart from the clasp on the butterfly, the top bar on the butterfly clasp. Apart from that, you know, it's really lovely. We've had a look in closer detail on the dial. Everything's really spotless. Case is great. You know, it's fully polished, so you are inevitably going to get little scratches here and there. So price-wise, you know, perhaps it is a little bit higher than I would have wanted to see. You know, I probably would want to have a little bit of a discount going on. But apart from that, you know, it is a really nice watch, and I can't fault them for creating something to fill that market. So this was the Karl Leimon Classic Pioneer, and that's what it's all about. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment your thoughts below. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.